Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Coming up on the Payoff, Matt Williams. By the way, the timing couldn't have been any better. Probably today, if you're listening to this, the day it goes up, Matt is 13 years sober. And he's also an innovator, and he's a guy that will inspire you to do better. His podcast, Wake Up the Sun, basically is all about routine and ritual and how that can take you to the next level. His story about getting sober will definitely take you to the next level, a guy that I could relate to a ton. And Fropro, he'll tell you all about it. But it's the protein that you need. And it's also tasty, too. I've actually had some. So without further ado, let's get it over to my main man in South Florida, Matt Williams. I've done my research on you. And the first thing, I did my digging. The first thing I want to ask you about is take me back to May of 2010 when your life implodes. You know, what happens to get you, because you've talked about you experienced enough pain. Talk a little bit about experiencing that pain and having the motivation to get sober off of that.
Well, it's funny. It's funny we're doing it on this day because this is actually the anniversary of me getting arrested.
Wow, because May 17th is your sober date, I think.
Yeah, so May 15th was the day of the last time I ever had a drink. It was a lot of alcohol, and it was just one of those things where you bring, like, everybody brings something to the party, and this is, back in the day I was teaching and coaching, and it was the end of the year, and after a school play, and everybody was just going to the teacher's house to drink, cut loose, and just kind of like the year was wrapping up. We had like a month left, and everybody brought something. What I brought for everybody else, I consumed entirely by myself. And then, at the situation, like, I didn't feel like I was drunk because that was the way I drank, right? I don't know if you can identify with this, where it's, if you and I are sitting in a room, like your room or this room, and we're drinking nonstop, I'm good, right? And then the minute I leave the environment, it's like blackout, and then completely, my body just keeps going, and then I end up somewhere I'm not supposed to be, or behind the vehicle, or the wheel of the car, or just anywhere really. I've woken up at some really crazy places, but yeah, literally May 5th. Like, I was just talking to somebody about this, but yeah, May 15th, 2010 is, drank, drove, and promptly got arrested at the local police station, and then they shipped me up to the prison in West Palm Beach.
So this happened in the West Palm area.
Yeah, so I crashed in Boca. Fortunately, didn't hurt anybody else. And like the Boca Police Department doesn't they don't house people. So it was like I went in, they did the paperwork or whatever they needed to do for the incident, and then I got put in another
called the gun club.
Yes. And I entered the gun club. It was and from my ins and outs of being incredibly intoxicated, because I was very intoxicated. Coming in and out of consciousness, and it was very humiliating. Just like I'm standing there with a couple other people that were getting booked, stripped down, searched every way you could possibly think, and then jumpsuited and thrown in the general population. And that was like the first time that really ever happened. I'd been in drunk tanks. I had been in, like uncomfortable benches, in holding cells, in my span of time of drinking. But this is the first real jumpsuit. Hey, you're fucked. Excuse my language.
No, you're good. You're safe here, right?
Yeah.
So that's you crashed the car.
Totaled the car. I was driving a Jeep Wrangler that I had drifted down to Florida from New York. less than a year before to move down here to start over. And yeah, totaled the car. I was coming from a pool party. I was wearing board shorts. I had no shirt on, no doors, no top on the soft top, and was just driving. Obviously shouldn't have been behind the wheel, but I thought I was fine because I was in an environment where it didn't hit me until I had left. And the time I got where I got, it had hit me hard, and that was it.
So
it was over.
what happens, because we're going to go backwards and get into your story, but
Sure.
I imagine, knowing your story just a little bit like I do, you'd been through scenarios, maybe not quite this bad, but many scenarios like this in the past. What about this one that you're coming up on? I mean, this will probably be up after it passes, but your sobriety date is, you got 13 years and 2 days, God willing, as we say.
Yeah, God willing, May 17th of this year will be 13 years, and it's crazy. Like, time has flown, and I really look back at that, and like that time, those things were, I was like, I didn't want to live in that, and I've spoken about that, and I never like to get too dark, but like it was one of those things that I felt completely like done, where I crashed. I sat on the side of the road. Like, I just kind of waited to get arrested. Like, before I had gotten arrested before, or crashed my car, and I just sat there like waiting to like just get cuffed, right? To be in that position of like, hey, I'm done. Here we go. That's it. Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And this one, it was, once I started to really come to, and I always describe this as, you ever been in a place where you kind of hear, and you're kind of like, your eyes are closed, and you're like, man, I really hope I'm not where I'm at. And I woke up on a cot, and like dried snot, tears,
I've been there.
Yeah, just like that caked on, like sweaty, gross smell of booze. And and I realized, I was like, wow, I'm in an orange jumpsuit, and I'm on a cot, and like just kind of was like, please don't let me be where I think I am. And I was, and I just said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm an alcoholic. Like, I can't do this. Like,
you decided on that cot, hey, I've got to make more so than any other time.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was a decision. It was the first time I had like really just kind of like cried out and said, like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. Because people had said like, hey man, that frothy emotional appeal, like, man, why do you keep doing this? And what's really going on? And why can't you drink like a gentleman? And why can't you just stop like everybody else? And I didn't know. I didn't know any of that. It was one of those things that was really challenging for me, because I felt like I was doing okay, right? I had a couple masters. I was teaching, I was coaching, I was bartending, I was working at a restaurant, I was mentoring, I was doing all these things. But the minute I started, and it wasn't an everyday thing, but the minute like I put, it's like, I always think, and it's like not funny, but like I think old school, but once it crossed my lips or anything, any of that, that chemical reaction occurred where I just wanted to keep going, and I wanted more, whether it was booze, coke, drugs, whatever you put in front of me. I just wanted to do it because it was fun. I enjoyed it. And I didn't really think about the consequences. And I fought a lot of like gut feelings before, and things that I was like, why do I feel this way? And what's that thing in my chest or my gut, like telling me, before some nights I remember, and just being like, whatever, it's fine. And that was a thing, man. I just like to get after it, have fun, because I worked really hard. And if someone came to me and said, hey man, like, you're being, you're a little too much, I'd be like, well, you can get fucked and go somewhere else, and I'll just find someone else to party with. And I started drinking with like people that were way younger than me, and people that I like thought drank like me. And then eventually, those people are like, dude, like,
you circle through groups of people, right? You circle through states. That's part.
I did states. I did like, I'm going to go to New York City, and then I'm going to go to Connecticut, and then I'm going to go back home and visit friends there. And then, eventually, like I always say, it's like, eventually, as alcoholics, you either end up alone drinking by yourself, or by the time, which is the result of me going to these places again and be like, hey dude, the last time you were here, you were a real asshole. And, we don't want to drink with you. We don't want to go out with you. Like, you're a liability. You're not fun to be around. Like, we can't enjoy ourselves because we're worried if you're going to do anything. And I never really like fought. I wasn't angry. I just would drink and disappear and go talk to people. And sometimes those people would, just not be the greatest of people to be, or end up in a place where I should be. And people were like, dude, like, what are you doing? and why are you doing this? And truth is, I couldn't tell you. And I thought it was like, okay, because like I wasn't hurting anyone else. So I thought,
What a
and I
desperate
was
thought,
just,
by the way.
right.
Because I've been there. The thought,
Yeah.
I'm going to open my eyes. I hope I'm somewhere different than the place I know that I am.
Hmm.
And it's a real thought. And it's a real thought.
Yeah.
You're telling yourself, God, I hope when I open this eyelid, I'm not going to be in this cell. And you are. And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's moments like that will incite change. Now, I want to go back to when you were a kid. Did you grow up? I know Stamford, Westchester, New York City. Where'd you grow up at exactly?
I grew up in Briarcliff Manor, New York.
Okay.
I attended a very small school, public school, in all these like little towns in Westchester. Everybody knew everybody. I had, my parents moved there before I was born, so I had two older brothers that were, for if you were to look on paper and meet them, you're like, wow, these guys are saints. They varsity sports and were, musically inclined and did, the whole thing and went to Ivy League schools. And again, no one put that on me. I just looked at that and I was like, wow, these guys are legit. So what do I do? And encouraged in my family, my mom and dad were really like, hey, play sports, play music, do whatever you want. Like I had no capacity for little league or anything like that because I had no attention span. And there was like not like there was medicine back then, but like not like what it was or what it is today. And I would just like run around and like found like cool things to do and would go catch animals and like try to fish. And, I was just that kid that just liked being outside running around barefoot. And like anything organized, I
You steered away
had
from, yeah.
yeah, I just couldn't do it until I realized all my friends, if I wanted to see them and hang out with them, I should probably channel that into sports. And I wasn't really good and I wasn't really bad. And I was like able to do what I needed to do to play and be a part of things when I learned how to do it.
That's a kick-ass place
So
to grow up, by the way.
it is.
I mean,
And
you're
when
close.
you're there, you're like,
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
when you're there, you're kind of like, oh, this is fucking stupid. And everybody, and I go back and I remember, being sober a couple of years and I went back one time and I realized it wasn't my hometown anymore. I had been in Florida long enough where like, that's my home. And this was a chapter in my story. And, it was kind of hurt, but at the same time, it was cool. Cause I was in and out of there. I became that, that guy that I always hated because all the, girls in our grade, like the older guys that were,
Yeah,
coming
so
back
you
from
come back.
college and hanging out. And then like I was coming back, I was like running the camp and feeling like I was a good guy because I was a teacher in the summers. I ran a camp, but like I was partying with these kids that were like 6, 7, 8 years younger than me. And, it's just like, I look back at that and I'm like, what were you doing?
We'll get back to this conversation in a second, but right now, a word from our sponsors. Hi, everybody. This is Pete Souza. I love smoothies, but I don't love smoothie bar prices. With my BlendJet 2 portable blender, I can make smoothie bar quality beverages for a fraction of the price. BlendJet 2 is portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita at the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. BlendJet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. It lasts for 15-plus blends and recharges quickly with a USB-C. Best of all, BlendJet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap, and you're good to go. With over 30-plus colors and patterns to choose from, there's a BlendJet 2 to complement just about any style. I like the urban camo print myself. So what are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com and grab yours today. And be sure to use the promo code PETE12. That way you'll get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of the BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. Blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to blendjet.com and use the code PETE12. Remember, you get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever. Hi, everybody. This is Pete Souza, and we're talking about how to look good. I, of course, need help looking good, and Champions Barber and Salon helps me out. If you're looking for a great haircut or shave experience, go to Champions Salon and Barber. Their skilled barbers and stylists are dedicated to giving you the best service possible. Whether you need a simple haircut or a complete grooming package, they have got you covered. They have 2 convenient locations. I've been to both of them. They're awesome. one in Waco, and one in Woodway. You can also book appointments online or through their app, which makes it easy to schedule your next visit. So why wait? Visit Champion Salon and Barber today and experience a cut above the rest. Hi, everybody. This is Pete Souza, and this podcast is brought to you by Be Kind Coffee in Waco, Texas. With 2 locally owned locations, you can enjoy specialty coffee, bagels, and cookies 7 days a week. Visit @Be Kind Coffee Crew on social media and BeKindCoffeeCrew.com to learn more. Be Kind Coffee, making the community kinder, one drink at a time. When did the behavior start, the alcoholic behavior? Like, when was there a moment in time you can circle on the calendar and say, I had my first drink?
Yeah.
You know, for me, I always say it was my first spiritual experience, really. I was insecure. I could drink. I wasn't so insecure anymore. It was like the nectar of the gods for me.
Yeah. Well, no, I was going to make a joke. Like, that started September 22nd, 1981 when I was born. But,
that works here, dude.
I think it took a turn. Probably like, there's like there's the whole one-upping thing, right? When we were, you go to a friend's house, you do sleepovers, you drink in the basement, steal parents' booze, and like, oh, did you bring? Oh, I brought some weed, or I brought this. And, it's just like that kind of thing for a while, and then you always try to one-up your friends, even though like you're bringing something for everybody to, take or do or drink. We had a friend that looked like he was 30 because he was like this heavy-set Italian kid, and he would always get us booze at the gas station, and all these things. But it really got bad. I want to say, high school not so much, but like entering into college, and then I think probably like it was bad from the jump, but it got really bad. Lost a buddy, just like tragic illness, and I was studying abroad, and I was working really hard over the summer and like kind of isolating myself because all I wanted to do was work and make money to go away to study abroad and drink and do whatever I wanted. So it got pretty dark when I started traveling abroad because I was in a different country, right? And like no one knew me other than a couple of the people I studied with.
Where did you go to school? Did you go to school overseas, or
I went to school at Gettysburg in Pennsylvania.
Okay, so Gettysburg had a program where you went overseas.
Really chill, D3 school, small liberal arts college. Loved it. There's a couple of schools I wanted to go. And
my nephew goes there. He plays quarterback for the football team. So I know Gettysburg. I'm from Philadelphia. So yeah.
What frat is he? Is he an SAE guy?
I'll find out for you. We'll keep him in line.
Yeah, all right. But yeah, no, and I found out real quick, like I didn't want to play music anymore, and all I wanted to do was like work out, do my thing, and drink when I did. And I had a lot of friends that were doing that, and I didn't feel like any of us were really out of control because I went to the library, I did my job, I kind of like did what I was supposed to and got good grades. But like when I drank, it was pretty gnarly at sometimes, but I thought I was just like everybody else. And again, there's some of those guys that are dead, and there's some of those guys that are functioning, and some of those guys that are sober. But I remember, like, I think I was about 20, and I had finished a lot of my classes for my degree. I'd studied and I did everything. And I think it was like the beginning of my senior year, I had like 2 to 3 classes, and they were like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So from Wednesday at noon to Sunday, it was game on. And that's when I think,
because you start and you don't stop. That's who you are.
And that's when I got introduced to cocaine, which is an incredible drug.
Sign me up.
And literally just allowed me to drink more and to keep going. And I have a pretty good endurance, meter, and can go and go and go. And that allowed me to do whatever, whenever, and just keep the endurance. When
I discovered, cocaine, Adderall, and then cocaine, it was, that was another spiritual experience for me at the time. And
well, I remember the first one was Hydroxycut. That was the first thing that someone gave me.
Hydroxycut to work out. Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Well, to work out.
Yeah. How many of these can I take and not like keel over, Right. So I can totally relate. And then, the cocaine really speeds up. For me, it sped up, my bottom. I don't know how it was for you. It definitely kept me, I appreciated it because I was sloppy. So it made me no longer sloppy, which I loved about it. And
me too.
Yeah, and it hit something in my brain that I don't know. Clearly the same thing was to you. It doesn't work the way it worked for me, for everybody, even alcoholics, but it really worked for me. And it's a monster. it's pretty scary when it starts to take off.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like you said, day
100%.
after day after day. What was that experience like for you? You're
Yeah.
20 years old, you have free time, you're starting on Wednesday, you discover this drug.
Yeah, it was, I went out a little bit more. I went to the places that people did that, basements. And it wasn't like freely done out in the open, but basements and attics and all these different places. And, I was in a fraternity where it was like all the retired athletes, the guys that came to play something that stopped playing it, like baseball, basketball. We had, football. Like we just kind of were those guys that were like the party guys. And I wasn't really a big fan of a lot of other things then. And like that's like the thing that allowed me to graduate. It's like once you graduate into like the other substances and the other things that people put in front of you, I never liked tripping because like that I felt put me out of control or
Yes.
whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it just got progressively, it got just progressively worse. And consequences weren't really happening that much. Like I had told, I mean, man, I shouldn't say that. Like I had flown through the windshield of a car, driving drunk. I gotten a lot. I had gotten away with a lot
Typical,
of
by the way,
things.
typical fucking alcoholic. Yeah, no
Yeah,
real consequences. There was the time when I went through the
right.
windshield.
Yeah.
You sound
Well,
like
it's like
me. Yeah.
right. It's like when I go backwards
Yeah.
into everything. It's it's these things where I've totaled vehicles, and in college I just had like this old school pickup truck that I eventually totaled in one summer, and then it kind of just every car moving forward until May 15th of 2010 was just at the mercy of me drinking and driving at some point.
When
Would
was
scrape a bump.
when did your parents or your brothers or somebody really close to you
Oh
say, "Hey, Matt,
yeah.
this is a real problem"? And that for
Oh
me,
yeah.
that was always like really freaky because I'd be like, "Wow, this is bad."
Yeah, no, they intervened a couple times in terms of not like an intervention, but they'd be like,
Mhm.
"Hey, man, like, what's going on? Like, are you okay?" And that didn't really, again, my mom would always be like, "Why do you do this?" And then you tear everything down, and then you go here, and just said, "I'm just trying to, do what's right for me and continue to move forward, and like I'm really not hurting anybody." And that whole part of kind of my older brothers, like everybody had their lives going on, right? And everybody was doing their thing, and I didn't want anybody to know, and I didn't really, I didn't really, not that I felt like no one cared, but I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. So a lot of that whole like family dynamic, it was great, but there was definitely a couple brothers trips where we all went out, or like people would come home and we'd go to like my parents' house, and my dad, like no one really drank in my family, but like we would have booze in the house from random events, or again, it'd be sitting there for a while, like a
Yeah.
couple Bud Heavies or Rolling Rock, and we'd always leave it by like the mudroom to go out to the recycling bin, and at the in the morning or whatever, people would be like, I had like one or two, and then there's like 20 in the
Yeah.
kitchen or in the sink, and like they're like, dude, did you drink 18 beers last night? Like stuff like that.
Yes, which is,
And
by
then
the
the
way,
concept,
it's shameful. I mean, that's for me. It was
right?
there'd be shame attached to
Oh,
that, and I
100%.
bury it.
Like there were mornings I walked in when like the family was there, like where like Thanksgiving Eve was always a big night, and I would or Christmas Eve or something like that, and we just would go. I would go out, and sometimes I wouldn't come home, and I'd be hanging out with a young lady, or I'd be with my friends, and I'd walk into the house, and like my whole family's eating breakfast, and that was the most shame when I'd come home and they're like, "Dude, like, come on, like
Yeah.
you're like like no one." I knew what they were thinking, and they had expressed it to me, but no one ever like leaned into me, and I probably wouldn't have listened then anyway. But my brother did. Both brothers actually tried to introduce me to one of like my middle brother tried to introduce me to a friend who was sober, and I remember going on a car ride like an hour away to talk to this guy. I just kind of was like, "Cool, nice to meet you, man." Like, and it was after an incident. My brother was trying to help, and I just kind of was like, "Cool, man, yeah,
This is
okay."
exactly. I
So
mean, I can so relate to this, man. It's
yeah,
like you're
and
putting
then my
everything, that drug in front of everything. You know.
right, and the other side of that was, so you call my brother-in-law, right? So my oldest brother's wife's brother, say my brother-in-law, he was sober, and I remember him talking to me And just like kind of telling me what he went through. He almost died in college from, and almost killed somebody else. He got sober, and I was like, cool story, man. Like, that never happened to me. Great, keep it moving. Like, even the pastor, I grew up Episcopalian, and we went to church. Even the pastor at my church tried to talk to me, who's in recovery for 30 something years. And Father Charlie would just like, my dad was like, hey, go talk to him. And I'm like, why? I don't want to fucking talk to him. Like, he's like God's guy. Like, what do I want to talk to him for?
Yeah.
But it was, a lot of people tried to help, and I didn't want to hear it.
The thing
I see
thing that would bring you and Charlie close today is the thing that kept you apart from him back then. It's like, I couldn't get any further away from those people, regardless of what you did. You could have been the quarterback of the Jets telling me to stop drinking, or some priest who I was associating with. God, it did not matter. If you were telling me that, it wasn't happening.
Yeah. I steamrolled a lot of people, and that didn't deserve it. And there's definitely, in the process of getting sober, a lot of people I was able to make amends to, and a lot of people that I wanted to, but re-entering their life would have been a bad idea.
For sure.
So my dad had passed away before he could see me sober. So there's, that was a big one for me. And the living amends is a huge thing, and I try to do that today. And a lot of people call me intense, and how I approach certain things. I just, when I got sober, I was like, I get it, and everyone's on their journey, but like, your hand is out, and you ask for help. I'm here to help you till it hurts, but I can't get anyone sober, and I can only share my experience, strength, and hope. And, I firmly believe that. Like, I try to practice these principles. Like, I grew up with principles. I grew up with standards. I grew up with like a really loving, awesome family, and I've heard some crazy shit in sobriety of people that got sober and went through some really horrific shit. And I was like, wow, I'm a real asshole for having it really like okay. But again,
yeah,
when I start comparing, it's a problem. But it
but
really
there's
is.
gratitude in that. You throw all your problems
100%.
in the middle of the room with everybody else. You're going to take yours
them back.
Yeah,
100%.
So one of the things I love about your story, first of all, you are intense. You're up every day at 4:15, right? The podcast is called Wake Up the Sun. We talked about that off the top, but and of course we'll talk about that. Your recovery starts after that accident, and if I'm missing anything huge, just throw it in there. But after that accident, you keep your job. They say, hey, we're going to keep you around for a month. Just see this through. And I love how you mentioned the teacher seemed like a pretty cool guy, or the principal, but he didn't quite get what was happening with you.
No, I mean, he was a headmaster. He had sons that had like DUIs, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. Williams, this will be fine." And I'm like, "Yeah, no."
But you knew, so you're sober. Are you going to meetings over the course of that first 30 days?
So what's crazy is that it was everybody knew what had happened. So this went down on like a Thursday or Friday night. I have to look at the date, and when I came into school on Monday, everyone knew, and it was that whole like. Oh, there's Mr. Williams.
Whispering,
and I went right in the headmaster. I said, hey, this is what happened. He's like, no, I know, I heard. I was like, I'm really sorry. Bring you guys shame. And, I understand if you have to let me go. He's like, no, it would be more of a disservice to have you leave with your kids. Everybody, we got a month left. And, you didn't resign the contract for next year. And like, even if you did, it would be up in the air because of what just happened and transpired. So it's like kind of for the best that you're leaving anyway. Because I wanted to go back up north. I wasn't like I really found like I had the Jeep, I had the place in South Florida. I was teaching out of school. I was coaching varsity baseball. Everything I could have possibly wanted. I was finally getting paid. And I didn't fucking care.
Yeah.
And I was just so full of it. Like, I'm entitled to this. I worked really hard. And just like full of shit and like full of myself. And funny enough, like one of the parents who dropped our kids off early, because I would do early care some mornings. She pulled me aside, and I kind of told her, and because there's a couple families I was really close with.
Yeah.
And she pulled me aside, and she goes, "Hey, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, like, hey, I'm an alcoholic, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. This is crazy, and like I'm at this." And she just smiled, and she said, "I've been sober for a long time, and I know where you are, and I know where you're at." And I was like, "What?" I was blown away. And she said, "It'll get better. If you need anything, you have my number, and you can count on us." And I was like, "Wow, okay." And like, I'm thinking, no parent wants to talk to me. And then another woman a mother and family. She said, "Hey, I want you to call my husband." And he was a scary dude, and I was like, "No chance, I'm calling him." And she's like, "Please do. Like he's expecting your call." And I got through the day and I called him, and he said, "Hey, Mr. Williams, I'm gonna come pick you up." And he picked me up and he took me to a meeting, and he was sober. And I went to a meeting out in West Boca, and I sat there and I listened. And I had been to one before after like my first DUI back in like 2003,
Uh-huh.
I think. I went for like 1 or 2 days and I was like, fuck these people. I don't know
Yeah.
what they're talking about. But I sat there and I listened, and he nudged me and made me share. And I laugh about it now, and I laugh about it then. Like I literally, just said, "Oh yeah, man, I'm an alcoholic," and like mumbled. And he said, "Try it again." I said, "I'm Matt. I'm an alcoholic. I lost my job," and like I just like vomiting like all these poor me things, and people are just nodding and
Yeah.
smiling at
Yeah.
me. And then people shared, and one person in particular called me out right off the rip and was like, "I remember." Goes, "Wow." He's like, "Man, I remember when I was like you. You're a scared little boy." And I was like, "Yo, like no one talks to me that way."
Yeah.
But he had my number, and people had my number. Like everyone,
That's the best
like
part about
everyone.
the
Yeah,
rooms. It's just you go in there
yeah,
and once you're open to it, you realize that you're home, and you
yeah,
realize that
a hundred
okay,
percent.
like I can be in here. I feel safe, and I don't ever have to feel the way that I felt before.
Right.
And if I talk about this stuff, I get that juice that I got for me
The
that I
the
used to
Jews,
get.
baby.
Yeah, I get that juice that I used to get.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know, right? The Fropro juice too, right? But you get that juice that I used to get from drinking and using drugs. And it started to happen for me in those meetings.
yeah,
And I love your story too, because you go to meetings, and this is the long-term situation was part of my recovery. You get done, you wrap up the school year. Again, if I skip anything, just let me know. You get done the school year, and you're like, I'm going to go to rehab, a 30-day program, and I'm going to bounce after
yeah,
30 days. And you go and you stay for 90 days, which is what happened to me. I was like, I
yeah,
went to a treatment center, and then they were like, you got to go to an extended care place because I had nothing going on. So I go to this extended care place, and I was like, I'll be there for a month. And I stayed for 4 months there. It was
Where'd you go?
I went to
Where'd you go?
Karen for rehab, and then I went to this place called MRP. Yeah.
You went to Karen? What
Yeah.
year?
I was 2011. Yeah.
Wow. What was your therapist?
God, Jennifer, I forget her name. Jennifer, blonde hair. So
Wow.
you went to Karen too?
No, I know Karen very well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've done a lot of work with them,
Okay.
and a couple other centers here, but like I
Yeah.
just know a bunch of people that go through there.
It saved my life. I mean, it was a place, it was just right. I mean, it sounds cliche, right place, right time. I was ready, and they certainly had the services to meet me where I was, and I was there.
Yeah.
And it changed my
Yeah.
life. And what changed my life is they were like, you need to go somewhere else. And I finally was like, okay. Like I started taking suggestions, and they had good ones, and I had
Yeah.
finally surrendered, and my whole life changed, and I attribute a lot of it. And this is not everybody's story. This is my story. Like
Yeah.
the long-term recovery thing is really, really what got me started, on the right path.
Yeah. And that's the same. I mean, I tried to leave after 30 days. Um, and it didn't take much convincing. I had my mother was basically like, "I love you, but good luck. Talk to your brothers if you need anything," because I had put her through it. And it's one of those things where it's that hopeless feeling of like, man, like I want to be sober, but like I don't know if I can do it. And I had a bunch of legal consequences hanging over my head that you know I knew I needed treatment, and my lawyer was like, "You need treatment." And I said, he's like, if you want to have any possibility of not serving 1 to 3 years. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
um, but of course, like a good alcoholic, I interviewed a couple centers. uh, but I ended up, one of my friends who was sober from home that lived down here. He guided me to a place, and I went in there. I was like, "Wow, this is okay. I can do this, and this is something that I'll be able to to do for 30 days. And, at like day 28, I was like, okay, what am I doing? And my brother's like, man, yeah, you're not going back to the apartment. I had a good friend I was living with, and she was actually just a co-teacher that we worked together. So just friends. And he was like, yeah, we already took, right, you're not going back. She knows. So don't try to go back there. So you're doing another 30. And I was like, oh. And then after 60 days, I was like, hey, can I stay for another 30? And I stayed. And like, yeah, I think it ended up being like 82 official days or 83. Um, and I'd seen a lot of stuff, and I'd done a lot of work on myself. I was not a popular person there because like I was, my friend made it clear. He's like, you're not here to make friends. You're not here to meet women. You got this really good girl that you've been kind of dating that's around. Like you should just, get your head out of your ass and like focus on you and actually get to work. And if you don't waste anybody's fucking time, and don't, he's like, I referred you here, and like you're getting help because of me. And I was like, got it, understood, no
Yeah.
problem. And it was the first time I listened to people because I really had no other option. My way sucked. I wanted to die because I didn't, I just thought it was like I'm never gonna teach again. I'm never gonna coach again. Like I'm gonna be a fucking loser the rest of my life. I'm 28. My friends are married and kids and lawyers and all this cool shit. I'm a joke, and I was really down on myself. And going to treatment, and going to AA, and there's AA every day in there, and getting some therapy and getting some work done on myself. Really processing a lot of things that had been just like stuffed inside of me, and not processed, like my dad dying and roommate from college dying, and just a lot of death, and just a lot of things that I just kind of just got through.
You don't process any of
got
that shit. I mean, I didn't
no.
and it's, skeletons in the closet, whatever you want to call it, snow on the roof. When you get sober, it's like, okay. And that's why the program is great, like the 12-step model, which I know you're talking about. And for me, that's really what worked, is it takes you through all of that shit, unpacks it all, looks at it all. I mean, I'm still looking at some of it today, right? Because I still don't, do a great job of processing stuff that happened to me. So your life, how do you kind of ride hope into an effective life? Because what you're doing today is extremely effective. You're helping a lot of people. You really are setting the tone for a lot of people as well. People who you know, people who you don't even know. So how did you ride hope to becoming such an effective man?
Yeah, no, I think it was one of those things where, I think when you hit a bottom, right, and everybody has their bottom, I know people that, didn't lose cars and family and all this other stuff that just, were emotionally wrecked, whatever it is. I had to be bankrupt on every level, right? Financially, emotionally, familially, physically, spiritually, the whole deal. And I think when you go through that, at least for me, speaking of my experience, it's like, wow. And you start to do the work, and you start to see that, like, okay, I don't feel like a piece of shit anymore. And I do have some good qualities, and I do have some things that I'm good at, and it's not me that's good at it. It's, I was given this gift from, whatever you want to call it, higher power, God, universe, however you roll. And like, rather than being a taker, be a giver, right? And give it back, and do these things that I was instructed, or I should say suggested to do if I wanted to feel better. Like mind blowing statements, like people would say, like, hey man, you never have to feel this way again. Like that fucking blew my mind. It's so simple. And like it was said to me in a parking lot, and I wanted to punch the guy's head through the window. And I was just like, how fucking dare you? But wow, that is so profound. And thank you. Like those, all these one-liners, and like, I had a guy early on, like, my first mentor was really tough. He was like a good old boy, just like from the South, like, hey man, hey, you're either gonna do it or you don't. You're either gonna call me or you don't. And I'm never gonna call you because you have nothing I want. And I'd be like, oh my God, okay. And he told me, I remember we went to go out to a meeting, and I saw a bunch of people and all these things, like people grabbing coffee and like this fellowship stuff before the meeting. I was like, man, why don't we do that? He's like, hey man, he's like, listen, he goes, I'm picking you up to take you to a meeting for me. He goes, I have this. This is part of my service. He goes, if you want that, you go build it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's great. I've never heard something like that.
Like,
yeah, that's great.
I was like, oh, okay. And I just got to work, like I wasn't going to be teaching again.
Where did you live after treatment?
I went back to the apartment for a couple
In Florida.
for a couple more. Yeah, I
Okay.
went back to the apartment that I was living and teaching out of.
What's
for
up with the girl, the girlfriend? Are we still seeing her? Or?
No, so yeah, we're still seeing her, but the girl I lived with is just a friend.
Yeah, yeah.
She let me back in, and when the time was up, she's like, "Hey, it's time to go." And the girl I was dating, like, we were dating for a little bit, and we really liked each other, and she stuck around. I told her to run, and we moved into this place in Boynton. I never did halfway, just because like I had a month of meetings, and then I went to 3 months of treatment, and like
Yeah.
probably 8 to 9 months or so, my lease was up, and my roommate was like, "Hey, it's been fun, but like I don't want to, nicely, I don't want to live."
Yeah.
Like, she never said it, but I could feel it. She's like, "I don't want to live with a sober guy,"
Yeah.
because she was a normal person. And I moved in with this girl, and we moved into a little 1 bedroom, like, studio apartment in Boynton. And I was riding the bike, taking the bus, and trying to pick up odd jobs. And just kind of slowly, we bought, like, my first major purchase was like a bike rack for the back of her car. So if she needed to pick me up from somewhere, she could. And it's crazy. We laugh about this all the time. Like, I married her. She's my wife.
Nice.
She's the fucking best thing that could have happened to me. She I fucking hate to do this. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and it was one of those things that, like, I was like, why are you doing this? And she saw something, and she was like, "You're a good guy, like, you fucked up." And she was doing her thing, I was doing my thing, and slowly, kind of the business, or 'cause slowly, kind of like the things were coming to fruition, where I was like, "All right, I'm gonna start making this little peanut butter snack bar, and I'm working out again." And some of the families that knew I stuck around were giving me an opportunity to tutor and coach. I'm like, "Hey, man, we understand people mess up, and like, you were always good by us, and you were great to our kid, and you know we want to give you a second chance." And I just had a lot of grace from a lot of people, and people really, gave me a chance, and I took that to heart, because I didn't feel like I deserved to live.
Couple questions for
And
you. Um,
yeah,
so that's an incredible like journey we're on right now. And did you use, I shouldn't say did you, how critical was recovery and going to meetings and that fellowship, working with a sponsor, to reintegrating with like society? And not only that, but you go back to the place where everybody knew what had happened to you, right? I mean, pretty much.
yeah,
And the only way out, in my experience, is right through recovery and right through, like you can't, I've tried to do that before, kind of on my own, like, oh, look, I'm not, like, oh, look, I'm not drinking anymore. Like, it's okay. Like, I don't need to go to meetings or whatever. I really believe it is so critical to be like a part of that, right? Because on the outside, your life really doesn't look great, right? You're riding a bike, you're working odd jobs, you've blown it all. But on the inside, you got this pot of gold, and that's what people start to see that. And it's an amazing transformation, because if you're really dialed in, you can be 6 months, 6 weeks sober and help somebody else.
yeah. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. I mean, I was going to meetings every day, sometimes twice. And like anybody that was going, that was willing to pick me up, I'd go. And my wife, my girlfriend at the time, I mean, she knew AA came first, because I told her that. I was like, AA has to come first before me, before us, before anything, or else it's gone. It's gone. And I just said that because someone told me, like, this is the way it is. If you don't put this first, you're gonna lose everything. And I made it first, and it's still first. Like, my morning routine is the same thing that someone suggested when I got sober, which is, you know, some form of prayer in the morning when I wake up, some form of physical activity, some form of journaling, some form of meditation and breathing. And I still, I still do it, and it works. I still read the same daily reflections book every day. Still journal about.
All right, what's your
my life.
routine? Let me ask you now, because you're a pro. What is your routine? No, seriously. I mean,
Oh yeah.
what's your routine? What's your
So,
routine in the morning?
yeah, wake up, drink about 20 ounces of water.
4:15.
4:30.
Okay.
4:15.
All right.
It's changed. Like, I used to run a lot more, and my body hurts a lot. So I
It's
don't run as
same
much
as me.
in
Yeah.
the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I drink like 20 ounces of water, go downstairs, so I don't bother my wife. And yeah, I do. I just added again back into it, which has been great. Like 3 to 4 rounds of like static breathing that my brother talked to me about for years. He's been doing for years, and I did during COVID, but like stopped doing for
Uh-huh.
whatever reason because I was too busy.
Yeah.
So I do like 15 to 20 minutes of breathing, then I'll pray. I will go have my like morning drink of like greens, vitamin C, the element salt, amra, all this stuff, like that concoction of stuff that, is just good for my body. I'll drink that. Then I'll journal, read the daily reflections and just kind of like where I'm at, how I'm feeling. Usually we'll have coffee already like had been brewed, and I'll pour that in and just put it off to the side for later. And then I'm either heading to go work out, take a class, or I'm heading to a meeting. And I start my day that way because I feel like for me, it's like the best thing in the morning, just because it gets me focused and gets me right. And, I try to really listen, and I'm not always connected, right? It's some days are just like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm going through the motions. And I hate saying that even 13 years in, but, there are days I just, my mind's racing. I have all these things, that I think are more important
It's a
than
daily
time
reprieve. I
together.
mean, literally
Yeah.
every single day it starts anew.
Yeah. Pretty much. And then, yeah, then I'm out and about. And then it's, I'm either at the gym with clients. I have a couple coaching clients on the side for just kind of like life stuff. Fropro's rock and rolling,
So
like,
okay, let's talk real quick. So you got the podcast, which is Wake Up the Sun. All right, where you talk to successful people, people that have been through stuff in life, about how
yeah,
their routine, right, pretty much brings them or puts them in a position to be extremely successful. Like now, is
right.
that a fair description?
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's a podcast that explores the aspects of routine, ritual, consistency in our everyday
How important is that routine and that ritual for people? I mean,
lives. For me, I don't live successfully if I don't do it. If I'm not, even when I travel, the same thing. I travel with the stuff that I need, that so I can mimic my routine as best I can, even on travel days. Like, even, it's like if I'm traveling, I'm working out, I'm doing something physical, I'm taking, my athletic greens, my Emra, my element, like, I'm drinking water. Make sure there's coffee, and, I have like a workout clothes, and whatever I'm doing,
yeah.
like that has to be part of it for me to be successful, and for me to like do things like this and be focused and not like all over the place.
So Fropro, by the way, so it's frozen protein. Explain to
Yep.
people what exactly that is and where you can get it. I
Uh,
mean, besides the fact that it's frozen protein, but like give us a little, put a little context on it.
yeah. Yeah. So it's a organic peanut butter snack bar. So it's made with organic peanut butter, plant-based protein, gluten-free, oats, honey, and cinnamon. Tastes like a healthy Reese's peanut butter cup, or like a Snickers, whatever. And we're just a snack. We're not like revolutionizing anything. We're not, it's not filled with cordyceps or neurotropics. It's like just a great snack. It's a snack that I made for me when I was biking around South Florida, in my backpack with a change of clothes, if in case it rained, and getting around. And it was just this thing that, was made for fun, that I shared with a couple of business owners, that shared it with, whomever. And now you can find us in Florida in Whole Foods, and about 40 states. We're working on it. And you can order us on Amazon. And again, it's crazy to where it's come. It's a whole other conversation, but it's like this cool thing that only was because I got sober. It was only because of the people that supported me, and gave me a chance and gave me feedback, and challenged me the whole way, and played devil's advocate of, why are you doing this? This is stupid, or this sounds good. And I just had this belief that I was given this option, to run with. And we still have a long way to go, and I'm really grateful for where we are. And my I have mentors in my life that help me with business. I have a sponsor that reminds me, when I'm having a bad day, like just to go pop my head outside and look at the road that I wanted to kill myself on, back in 2010, and to keep it really, really fucking simple. And just remember, it's like, dude, again, like you said, it's a daily reprieve. We get today, might as well have fun. You may not be here tomorrow, and really try to enjoy the process of this cool shit that you're a part of. And like, it's like we always, as I always say, it's like, as a perfectionist, right? You do 10 things, you have 10 things to do, and you do 9 out of 10 right. That's a 90%. It's great. But what do we focus on? The one
Yeah.
thing I did wrong, and I let it dominate my thoughts, and I let it ruin my day. And it takes a lot of work for it to not. And, you know, I don't let that happen very often anymore. Thankfully, there are days that I get in my own way, and I play golf, so I can get really upset at things.
Yeah.
I'm very competitive with myself. I'm very competitive just in general, um, to strive for the best, right? Because I feel like I took for so long, and the legacy I'd like to leave behind is one of giving and being a good guy, and kind of like my dad. My dad was the greatest guy on the planet. Worked hard and helped a lot of people, and never fucking whined, and never had any of this that I'm going through. He had his own things and battles with cancer and whatnot, but kept his head high and kept working. And when it was his time, he was like totally prepared, and left the world a better place for being in it. So I strive for that, and that's like a real big driver for me, right? Is to be the man that my dad raised, to honor my family in that, and to basically honor all the people that were like, hey, like, stick around, like, life's going to get better.
A couple more things before I let you out of here, because this is very compelling. Your father passes away. You mentioned it before you get sober. How do you handle that? How does someone in recovery handle that? Because a lot of people would say, I know this. I don't know the answer to your particular situation, but a lot of people that aren't familiar with processing this sort of stuff would say, man, that's impossible, or that's a bummer. That sucks. How do you work through it and come out on the other side a better man?
For me, it was a living amend, and it's one of those things that every day I wake up, I try to be the guy that I know he'd want me to be, that he raised and that he made. It really does. It sucks, and like I still get emotional, obviously. It's one of those things that you got to just work through. And like some days it's like this, and some days I'm good to talk about it. When I think about it, it's like always around this time of year, when I'm coming up on some time where it's like, man, I wish I could call him and be like, hey, it's coming up on 13 years. But it's cool because my mom will remind me, and she'll just be like, he knows. I'm like, oh, Mom, why are you doing that? And my brothers, they know it too, and it's a cool thing. And I know it sucks for a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of people losing siblings, or losing sons and daughters, and it's not easy. And it would be lying if I said it was. It's a daily thing, and it's a process. But the living amends really felt like I wrote a letter to him when my therapist made me do when I was getting I was in treatment, and read it out loud, and read it to my death. It was like a death and processing group that I went to. And, I've been able to talk with a bunch of people that don't have parents in their lives, and been able to talk to people that have a fight with their parents and they're not talking. I'm like, man, I hope you straighten that out, because it's a huge void and resentment that I was experiencing, and not processing for a long time. Because I would always, I'll never do it again, Dad. I'm so sorry to let you down. And he never yelled. He never called me an idiot. Never put me down. He just said, I love you very much, and I just want the best for you.
Mm. And now here you are. You're giving them your best. And you are, and you're putting it out into the world. And the reason I asked is because you're the guy. That's why I love our tribe in recovery in AA. Like, if I'm sponsoring somebody, like my dad passed away, and I struggled with that, but he got to see me get sober, and then he had dementia, so that was rough. Yeah. But you're the guy who, if my sponsee is like, this is going on, I can say, hey, I could tomorrow if that happens. I would maybe have this person give you a call, Matt, and you could talk to him about it. I mean, that is the beauty of this. Like, somebody comes in and says, hey, I don't know what to do about this. I don't have the answer, but I know somebody who does. And
no, 100%.
And that's a beautiful thing, that you can kind of carry that legacy of his on and your experience and pass it into other people. A couple more things. How do you deal with your success? It can be a heady thing. And sobriety, You know, it's, you know, you don't let the gifts of sobriety get in the way of the gifts of sobriety, right? How have you handled your success?
I'm pretty tough on myself. If you could find that hard to believe. Yeah, no, I'm pretty tough on myself, and I always love. I think you hear it so many different ways, but like I think maybe Tony Robbins said it, and that was someone someone gave me that book when I was getting sober, and it was like, make sure if you're going to take credit for the success, you take credit for the failure, or just don't take any credit at all. And that's kind of how I, attribute that. Like my first one of the first things someone told me was like, you're in the effort business, not the results business. So just like you get up, you put forth the effort. In any success, it's like success is earned, not given, and the rent's due every day. And you've heard all of them,
Hmm.
and they're great. But like I don't, I'm very grateful for where I'm at today, and like I try to express that gratitude. And if I feel myself getting to that like cocky 25-year-old like that I was back then, it's just like that's not a good place to be. And I have a long way to go, and like this is a journey. And like we've had some really cool things, and some of the things I do have to work on is to take a moment to be present, be like, wow, this is really fucking cool.
Yes.
Thank God
Yeah.
for this, and wow, like I can't believe we've come this far, but we have a long way to go. So I don't really sit, I try not to sit in, any win or watch the highlight tape. I like this I just posted about, like, I don't watch the highlight tape too much. I'm like, oh man, this is cool. I'm like, I'm working hard and these are great things. And, there's certain things we've been waiting like a year or two on for the business. And there's certain things that we waited years to do, like buy a home. And, it's like a lot of hard work. And, that's what I was told to do. It's like, if you want something, you got to work hard. And when it's your time and the result's supposed to come, it will. And until it does, like, just keep working. Like, if you give up, that's on you. It's no one else's fault. So, any success I experience is a thanks to, my understanding of what God is, and thanks to an amazing woman that's my wife, Chelsea, and a lot of other amazing people that work here that, allow this to happen. This community is, a lot of people are like, oh, South Florida and recovery community. I'm like, anything else, man. It's what your perception is. Like, it raised me up. It loved me when I couldn't love myself. It gave me an opportunity that challenged me, encouraged me, and made me who I am today. So I think, again, I can't take any credit for that other than like I'm working my ass off, and that's what I was told to do.
All right. Last question. Somebody comes in and they can't stop drinking and they can't stop using, and they ask you, hey, what do I do? Somebody's listening to this right now and they can't stop. What do you tell them?
It may not be the answer you want to hear, but there's a lot of people that love and can help you. And unless you're ready to hear it, you may have to experience a lot more pain before, and like you may not come back from that pain. So, know that there are people here that have experienced what you've experienced, and what you probably have gone through what you're going through or have gone through, and can identify. And if you can come around and listen to a couple people, and maybe listen for some similarities, and maybe be open to hearing rather than dictating, you might have a shot. But I think the pain has to become great enough for that desperation to be created for you to actually want to change. And until that happens, a lot of people, unfortunately, like, again, we were one of them. And,
Yeah.
fortunately, we didn't pass away from this disease. And it's just for today. So I think anybody that's listening to this that's struggling, maybe you've tried it at one point and like you say, fuck this, give it another shot. I mean, you've had enough drinks and drugs unsuccessfully, but you keep going back to that. So why not give recovery a shot?
I love it. 90 days and we'll refund. Give us 90 days. We'll refund your misery. That's
I always love
yeah.
It. That's a good one. I always remember.
Hey, so anything else? Fropro, obviously. They can find that on Amazon. Wake Up the Sun is the podcast. It's great. You can get it wherever you get podcasts.
Spotify.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Spotify, iTunes, iPodcast. Yeah, no, man. I'm so grateful that we're able to do this. I'm family in town and getting ready to go hang out with my nephew. And
thank you for making the time, dude.
No, man, this is important. I'm really honored to be a guest and connect with you, and I love that. Definitely get on another conversation about your experience at Karen and my experience because we're around here at the same time.
Yeah, dude. I thank you so much, and
Yeah.
then thanks to Troy for setting me up with you. I appreciate it.
Big shout out to Troy.
Big shout out to Troy G. And this will post maybe like tomorrow. So just send me. Can you send me like a picture of yourself?
Sure.
Yeah.
No problem.
All right, your best one, Matt.
Best one.
Hey, let me ask you. I'm fucking with you. Hey, you said I don't look at the highlight tape too much. Did you make that one? Is that yours?
No, that's from, I was at a fitness summit back in Austin, and Jeremy Hills, who owns the Collective Gym, he just said, "Don't watch the highlight tape too much."
I love it, dude.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I write down quotes in my notes and like try to like pile them up and share them when I can. But it was something I shared on Instagram, and I remember I looked at it and I was like, yeah, because it's again like we look at the misery tape for so long and try to change that, and it's like you start to experience some success, and a lot of people walk away from recovery and forget what got them to where they are, and it's just like don't get caught up in that, because it'll take you out just as much as the other stuff will too.
Yeah. All right, Matt. I appreciate you, dude. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to The Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.